Welcome back, brothers, sisters, boys, and girls. Come gather around the campfire as we start Act 2, Part 2 of Fallen Aurora. Out in a winter storm, late at night, stood a log cabin. The wind was howling hard as the snow came down fast and fierce. Within the log cabin was a man that had lost everything, but fate had chosen him to be a warrior destined to fulfill a prophecy. He was leaning against the fireplace with a bottle of whiskey in his hand. His name was Dova, and the armor on his left arm, going from his shoulder to his hand, was called the Dragon Mother, with her spirit sealed within. But he could not hear her voice, for he was not at that stage yet in his training. But so far he has been relying on instincts and reflexes. He could not fathom the true potential he had stored within him, that the Dragon Mother could help him do. That is why Kime told him to stay in his world till Kime called upon him. He gazed over at the window, still remembering his wife sitting there, reading her books he always got her, and the toys on the floor that his children were always playing with.
Life was so simple, my love. Now it feels so empty. I am nothing without you by my side. I wish you were here now, for I need your guidance.
Dova looks at the bottle and gets angry and tries to throw it at the fireplace, but something stops his armored arm. At this point, he thinks it is his beloved wife, but it was only the Dragon Mother stopping him. Then he hears a knock at the door.
Who could be out there in this storm?
As he approaches the door, he sees a letter slide underneath the door with the Guardian seal onto it. Dova proceeds to open it to see what was written on it.
Dear Dova, I trust you've been staying out of trouble, so I will get right to the point, not to waste each other's time. I require your assistance on a mission I am undergoing, so I trust you will accompany me, for this is not a request, and if we are successful, I may have information on your family. Your friend, Kane, Eris, Kendra. Not a request? What does he take me for, a fool? He appears out of nowhere 12 years ago, saying he was destined to meet me, but never gave an understanding as to why, and his whole appearance gave me bad vibes. Like anywhere he goes, death follows.
Dova opens the door to see the storm frozen in time with candles lighting his path, so he gathers his things and begins to move forward when he sees a hooded figure on the pathway he is taking.
Kane, is that you?
The hooded figure softly shakes its head, and he sees it is a beautiful white wolf standing on two legs to guide him. She was carrying a claymore sword, and she was one of Kime's daughters as they walked together.
I remember her now. She was with Kane long ago. I was working hard as a woodman and farmer, trying to put food on my family's table. But I wish there was a force or something that could have warned me or warned us, for it was not only me that day that lost family. There was people that lost their lives too. Our village was a nice and peaceful place by the shores where the sea breezes kept things cool. And the marketplace was always busy with friendly faces, and the sailors coming into port with their stories while being stuck full on the ship. But that day, I wish I would have held on to my family just a little bit longer before saying goodbye. Me and 5 others were chopping down trees, but only what we needed, and hunted for what was going to fill our family's bellies. That is when it happened, a piercing sound like the sky was going to implode. We all ran to the cliff to see what was happening, and then we saw it. And we could not believe our eyes. It was so hard to explain. It was holes in space and time, opening up as balls of fire. We're coming down, hitting the sea while making it boil red hot. Then one huge portal opening to show the head of a dragon coming into our world. The men with me run, scared, screaming, and petrified out of their minds. But I knew they were fearing for their lives, and their families' lives too, like I was. I was frozen in place as I watched the huge dragon struggling against something, as I could see magic and buses of energy hitting it. Some would connect while others were deflected off of it. I did not know at the time it was a creature by the name Kane, but the power he held was great and terrible. How could something like that exist and not have to suffer the consequences? Then a large piece of ground emerged from the sea, and off of the piece of land rose the upper portion of a shadow man's body as it swung away with claws, tearing at the dragon and started ripping it apart, killing it. I then snapped out of my frozen state and saw fire coming from my village, so I ran as fast as my legs could carry me, only to come upon a statue in the forest as many times me and my men ventured through. Here we never once found this, but why now? The statue was of a one-winged knight, but we never heard of such tales or histories at all. A tree falls behind me as I turn only to see a large dragon running at me. I feel my heart sink that if this thing is here, then the village... No! My family is in danger. But as I step back quickly, I touch the statue's arm, and a bright light appears, and before I knew it, I was filled with rage and running towards the dragon that was going to kill me. I remember swinging the sword that grew from the hand and cut the dragon in two, but in doing so, the forest behind was destroyed by sheer power that was left over from the swing. The dragon swung back as it died and sent me flying towards the statue, destroying it. When I tried to get to my feet, I was in a daze, having a hard time trying to walk, let alone stand. By a present war, I needed to save my family. I stumbled as I was bleeding, trying to get to the village. I emerged out of the forest to my horrifying sight. The village was ashes, with dragons killing what was left, but the dragons were not normal. They were different from the ones in fairy tales that save or kill knights. These were abominations. I looked over to see my home gone. I screamed out in rage as tears filled my eyes. You took my family. I will kill you all. You will pay. And that is when he came and wrapped them all out with just his hand. That is when I passed out from my injuries.
Clara says, Father, I found someone. He is still among the living. I just don't know how far along he is because he's lost so much blood and it seems he has lost consciousness. Kaim walks over and sees Dova laying there as Kaim smiles. So, you're finally awake now. That's good, Dova. Good to see you're still among the living. Clara, tend to his wounds, alright? There will come a time I will need you, Dova, so make sure you're ready at that time. Clara says, Yes, Father, I will tend to him immediately.
That was so long ago. Thank you for saving me, Clara.
In a soft voice, Clara tilts her head, says, You're welcome, but my father is the one to thank kindly, Dova. Dova and Clara reach the end of the path, and there stood a door, as Clara opens it for Dova to enter in. But Dova looks around the door, seeing how strange it is that a door stands out in the forest, and there's no attachment to it. He thinks to himself, how can this be? A door without a house attached to it, or a hallway? How can this be? On the other side, Kaim sat by a campfire as the door closes behind Dova as he steps through, and the door fades away into obscurity, leaving both of them alone by the campfire to talk. End of Act 2, Part 2.